It looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind. It either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
What are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better... Sheriff? Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
This is Sebastian from Ecuador. You are listening to Sasquatch Chronicles.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with Patrick. And Patrick actually comes to us from Louisiana. And Patrick grew up his whole life, hunting, fishing, camping, spending more times outdoors than he did actually indoor. And he told me, he said, growing up, I always thought Bigfoot was a joke, a story people told their kids to keep them in line. And never thought they were real, never thought I would ever see one. And back in 2003, Patrick was out hunting, and he ran across a creature that ended up chasing him out of the woods. And he describes it as a female creature. So he'll be going into that tonight. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. If you get a chance to check out sasquatchchronicles.com, you can become a member and get additional shows. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Patrick to the show. Patrick, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, Patrick, absolutely. And I know you had kind of a life-changing encounter back in 2003, kind of a scary encounter, really. Prior to seeing this creature, I talked about it there a little bit in the intro, but for the audience, what was kind of your take? I'm sure you've heard of Sasquatch, or Bigfoot by 2003, but prior to your encounter, what were your feelings on this creature actually being real?
They didn't exist. They were just a wives' tale. Okay, they're just something that, someone made up. It wasn't real.
I get it. And I'm rarely ever hard on hunters, that'll go, well, I've been hunting, they're skeptical. They'll go, well, I've been hunting my whole life and I've never seen anything. I've never heard anything. And I get it. I completely get it. Prior to my encounter, I'd hunted and fished my whole life. I'd been out in the woods a lot. Never saw anything, never heard anything. So I definitely get where they're coming from. Back in 2003, though, your life really changed at that moment. If you would you take us back to that moment? Kind of tell us what you were doing and walk us into what happened.
Well, like you said, I grew up hunting and fishing. I'm a third-generation tracker. My father and grandfather were both great woodsmen. And as a child, I'd read the books about Bigfoot, and I just threw it down, called it hogwash, because I'd been in the woods so much. And my father told me it was a wives' tale that was made up. But, I got out of school and started working and was busy and got to missing the woods like I, grew up doing, hunting and fishing. And so I still hunt and fish, but I worked so much. And then I joined a primitive survival group, primitive living skills group, to expand my my outdoor experiences, to learn more, to be able to do more challenging exercise. And I grew up hunting the old ways. We didn't have corn piles. We tracked and killed what we tracked. But then, and I wanted to get back into that, but I wanted to do it better. And so upping my game and my hunting skills changed how I hunted even more so. And I started hunting in the further way back places, fringe areas. I made sure I would get at least half a mile further than anybody else would go. And that's where I run into something that was not supposed to be there. It was not supposed to exist. Okay, it changed. It changed everything. It honestly ruined my outdoors experience, because I used to be able to go out and just spend weeks in the woods, hunting, doing what I want to do. And now I know what's out there.
Yeah, tell us about that. I'm curious. Tell us what happened. So you're out hunting and you're deep in the woods. Walk us into what happened.
Well, I had to track this area out, and it was a little over a mile in, and there was, two big confluences of game trails coming in, and it was a little valley, and there was ridges on both sides, and I had packed in a climbing stand, and there was a stump hole on the foot of this hill that I dug out, and I had stashed my climbing stand in there and set myself up for deer season. And I'd hunted it once before in the morning with no issue. I'd been working a lot overtime, and I finally got a Saturday off to myself. And so I woke up that morning late. I was running late. I was mad at myself. So I said, well, I'll just do a midday hunt. So I cruised in, grabbed some breakfast, hit the woods. I got to the woods about 10 o'clock. And I parked, hiked all the way back in there, and grabbed my climbing stand, threw it on the tree. And so I'm up in the climbing stand, and I hunted through midday hours, 11 to 1, and past that and beyond. And and the woods were dead. It was a beautiful sunshine day, nice temperatures. It wasn't cold, it wasn't hot. It was just a beautiful day, but the woods were completely dead. Okay, there wasn't a squirrel, there wasn't deer, there wasn't bird, there was absolutely no sound in those woods. And I just sat in my stand enjoying the peace and serenity of the woods, And this one mosquito came and got under the brim of my hat and kind of floated down and got on my chin. And I reached up to flip it off of my chin, and the brush out in front of me explodes on this ridge top. It just explodes. It's just, and it takes, and something inside this brush takes off, and it's running, and I hear whack, 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 as it's running from my right to left, going up the draw. These three whack, whack, whack. And so I'm rolling through my index. I'm pretty good in the woods, a lot of experience. I said, I bet that's a buck, and this rack is hitting the brush as it goes through the brush, going, not, So I'm thinking I got busted by a deer. That was 4 o'clock afternoon. I sat there for about another hour, and I said, well, I might as well hunt the dark. And so I reached in my pocket, make sure my flashlight's there, and it's not. I forgot my flashlight. And so I made a decision. I'm not going to fight my way out of here in the dark. So I get down, I stash my stand, I climb the stand, cover it back up, and I start picking my way up to this draw, ridges on both sides of me. And I'm thinking about what I want for dinner because I know I'm going to treat myself well today. I've been working a lot. Wife's gone, kids gone. Got a day to myself. I'm going to stop at a restaurant, and there's a restaurant that opened up, had coconut shrimp, or they had steak. And I love coconut shrimp because I'd had it one time. And I'm going. So I'm thinking in my head what I'm going to have for dinner as I'm picking my way up to the straw. And it's a quarter mile from where I stashed my stand to where I have to make my way up. I have to turn right to get out, to go uphill and get out of the straw. And right when I get to my turn, bam, something hits me. Something's wrong. Something's very wrong. I feel the heat. I feel heat on the backside of my left shoulder, on my shoulder blade. I feel a heating sensation. It's hot. And I'm like, oh man, I hope nothing's going wrong with me out here. And I stand there and I feel it for a second. And I thought, well, okay. So I started turning. And I turned, a 360 degree. And in the back of my mind, there's the little calm voice that's always in the back of your mind. It's screaming, get out of here. And I'm like, relax, we're cool. We're confident, we're skilled, we're armed. So I do this 360 turn, and the heat is directionally. It actually changes on my body to where I can tell what direction it's coming from. And it's coming off the side of a hill that was behind me and to my left. And I know about where it's coming from, and I'm looking up this hill, and it's just a bunch of leaves. You can't see anything, but just a side of a hill with leaves. And it's not very far, 50, 60 yards. And I do a complete 360, and you can tell, the directional change, and it just kind of stopped. I said, well, that's weird, So I said, well, I'll go ahead and I'll make my right, and I start going up this hill. And it's 80 yards to the crest of the hill and another 40 yards to this dim road that I've got to hit, and it's almost a mile out. So I turn right, I step out of the sand on the pine straw. I'm making my way up, and from that, where I figured the whatever stare was coming from, sensation, I hear something run down that hill, and it passes me. It passes to my left and comes back in and around and to my left as I make my way up this hill. And as it comes in, it falls in the trail. It's 15 yards inside the brush line, 10 to 15 yards behind me. And it's in trail behind me on my left side as I'm making my way up this hill. And I think, that's weird. I'm still not alarmed. I'm confident, not worried. So I'm making up this way up this hill, and it's still doing this. And I think, this is crazy. I take a few steps, and it would jump. It would run and jump from a base to a tree to another base tree hiding. Okay, and there was brush in there, and it would hide in the brush, be at the base of a tree, hide in the brush, base of a tree. I couldn't catch it. It was fast. So I said, I'm gonna get smart. I took a half a step and looked, because it would time me. I'd take a couple steps and then jump, take a couple steps. Finally, I took a half a step and I looked, and I'm standing on one leg. And what I saw wasn't supposed to exist. Okay? It had two legs, my size, covered in a orangish red hair. It's in mid-flight. It's jumping from behind one tree. It's in mid-flight. Its right foot is extended out, very muscular, thin, my height. It's got my nose. And I watch it sail through the air. I can still see the hair on the foot moving in the breeze as it sailed through the air. It lands. It doesn't make much noise. It lands, and it has a bounce to it. And when it bounces, the sun was behind her as she went behind the next tree. The sun backlit her, and I could see the colors of the hair. and the length of the hair and the blonde split ends on the end of her hair that are split float up in the air and play in the sunlight as she went behind the next tree. And I was so shocked and so taken back. My feet had a mind of their own. One tried to stay, and one tried to freeze, and the other tried to take off running by themselves. I wasn't even thinking, and I almost fell. I stumbled and was falling uphill. And I said, okay, I took off running into a jog, and I caught myself into a jog up this hill so I didn't hit the ground. And now I'm jogging up this hill after seeing what I just saw that was not supposed to exist. It's not supposed to be there. Okay. And I'm jogging up this hill, and the only thing I could assign it to was the books that I'd read in a library as a child that had Bigfoot as a title. And this was not in my wheelhouse. I was never the romantic of saying, boy, I hope one of these things exists. In fact, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite emotion. And I'm shocked. I'm thinking this as I'm jogging uphill. What is this? What does it want? How do I get away from it? What kind of strategy can I use to get away from this? And I'm jogging uphill, and I'm plotting out in my mind, she's 15 yards to my left, 10 to 15 yards behind me. And I know what a stalk is. I'm being stalked. As I'm jogging up this hill, I realize we're going to intersect in this dim road. She's in perfect place. If we keep going like we're going, and I hang my left, that's where we're going to intersect at. And then I freaked out. That's when my anxiety went higher. Okay, she has a tactic. She has a strategy. She's thinking about this. Okay, she's just not some animal on trail. She has an intelligence to her in her stalk and how she's stalking me. Okay, now the thing is, and I'm working this out in my mind, what advantage can I get to get away? Okay, she assumes I'm going to turn to the left because that's the way out that humans go. But she doesn't know. So she's going to pause in her gait to confirm the direction I'm going to go. She'll have to do that before she commits to an interception. So I'm jogging and I'm listening. I'm jogging and I'm listening. And she's keeping her pace and I'm keeping my pace. And it's, my adrenaline is building up to the point where I don't even notice tired, And I finally make the crest of this hill, and I got 40 yards to go to the dim road. And we clear it. I get to, 20 yards to it, 10 yards to it, 15 yards to 5 yards to it. She pauses. I leap out into the road and I take off. I'm like a shot. I'm gone. I'm down this road. I cover the 15 yards to the intercept point. I go 50 yards past that, and she rushes out to the edge of the road. And I look back towards her over my left shoulder, looking at her. And she's at the edge of the road looking at me, broad daylight. And she scuffs her feet on the ground like a kid that didn't get her way. She kicks up pine straw and dust, and I see it in the air as she scuffed it up with her feet and looking dead at me. Just serious. And now I'm freaked. Okay. I had my weapon in both hands. I swapped to my right arm. I'm gone. I'm running. And I make, 15 yards from her, I make 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And then I hear, and this is the only way I've been able to describe it. Her legs started up. Her legs start, and she catches me in under 7, 8 seconds. She's right next to me running, and I'm moving, and she catches me just quick. And now she's beside me. I'm on the right-hand side of this damn road running, and she's in the brush on the left-hand side of the road, 12 feet from me running, right next to me. Okay, and she's knocking, this green spindly brush is whipping her. And then she starts knocking out of the way with her hands as she's running. She's knocking out of the way, and she's just running beside me. And I say, oh my God, I can't outrun her. I thought maybe I could outrun. No, I cannot outrun her. She's so fast. And her feet aren't working like mine. Okay, I am smoothly running, but I'm covering ground. I'm fast. Her legs are hitting the ground twice as fast as mine, and it's choppy. And they just, her hips and legs don't work like mine. She is fast. And so we do this down this road, and the only saving grace is she's not trying to come into my lane. I had a plan out because there's not a whole lot of rational thought process going on right now. The only plan I had was, okay, I'm going to run. I'm going to try not to fall. If she steps into the road with me, I'm just going to spin and fire. That's my plan. That's what we're going to do. Run down this road. That was the best plan I could come up with. I didn't want to shoot. I didn't want to shoot anything that looked like it. Killing something is a serious thing for me. It always has been. If I take a life, that's a huge thing. I don't care if it's squirrel, deer, bird. I don't care what it is. I value life. If I take it, it's because I needed it. I don't want to take this life. So I'm running, and she's beside me, and we keep this up all the way to there's a dog leg in the road. I'm paying so much attention to what I'm doing, and I'm just trying to keep going down this road as fast as possible. And I'm moving. I finally hit this dog leg, and I recognize where I am. 115 yards to my truck off this dog leg. All right, I know where I am. And when I pass that dog leg, she starts veering off a little bit, getting a little more distant from me. And I'm like, oh, thank God. She's getting off of me. She's going away. And what it was, I looked over, and she's following the brush line. The brush line was getting away from me. The woods were clearing out. The brush was being pushed back further, 50 yards in a circle around this area as you're getting closer to the trailhead. And she's following that brush around, and so we make it 50 yards of trailhead, and that brush line she's in circles around, goes all the way to the trailhead. And I never really noticed that was a continuous row of brush that you have to go through right there at the trailhead. But she and I must have saw it at the same time, because she took off. I mean, she went from running to moving. Okay, she was moving. And I caught it terrified me so bad that I caught another gear I didn't know I had. I wasn't just moving. I was running and was low to the ground like a deer moving. That's how fast I was going. Running. And I had a straight shot, and I'm trying to beat her there. And she's coming around this brush line, and she's moving. And there's a hill. Once you get to the brush line at that trailhead, it drops down a steep hill. There's a bar ditch, and there's a gravel road. My truck's parked there. So I'm running, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, do I slow down to get down this hill? Because if I fall, I'm going to be in trouble. And I'm like, no, you just run and jump off this hill. Because if you slow down, you're not going to make it. At least if you fall, you'll be out in the open, and I'll just roll over and start shooting. So I run, I make it to the brush line, and there's about a 3-foot gap there, and it's about, 4 foot of brush. And I look, and there she is. She's 10 yards from me on my left side, facing right at me, and I pass in front of her. Okay? And when I look at her, I see her face. I see her nose like mine, I see her, but what really caught me is that she was facing directly west into the sun at this time. And the sun was refracting in her eyes so greatly that they glowed. And that caught me off guard. And I saw that second. That was like 1 second. And bam, I'm through the brush. I'm flying through the air as I leapt, trying to hit the roadway. I didn't hit the roadway. I hit the bar ditch, twisted my ankle, but I'm still on my feet. I ripped my keys out of my pocket, and I'm running around in front of my truck, and I'm looking at her, back at her, and she's froze. She's froze still. She hasn't moved a muscle, standing right there where she was at when I looked at her. And I run around my truck. I noticed my ankle hurt, but I didn't care. I just wanted to get out of there. I was terrified. As far as I know, I was running for my life. And I get my truck open, I sling my rifle in it. I don't even hit first gear. I got to have 250 standard. And I throw in second. I dump the clutch. I'm lurching and swinging gravel. And it seemed like it took forever to get going. But I get going, I get down that next curve and the next curve, and I started laughing at myself. There's no way that happened. There's no way in the world that could have happened. And I'm thinking, what could have happened? What would it cost me to think that if that actually happened? And I had a soft drink with me. And I pulled the soft drink out of my pocket and I threw it in the floorboard. I said, someone spiked my soft drink at the bottling company. I must have, that must be the explanation it was for that to happen, because those things don't exist; they're not real. And that was a lot to process. I had nightmares for 2 years when I slept. I didn't really sleep for 2 years, but when I did, I was on that road running for my life every time with a nightmare. And I did armchair research. Looked into this Bigfoot thing that people say exists, and I come to the conclusion. Now, this is how I rationalized it. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. It only happens to someone one time. It never happens to them again. I can repress this, say it was a hallucination or what. It doesn't matter. It's not going to happen again because I have to go out. I teach primitive survival, preliminary skills. I teach knife-only survival. I got guys that rely on me. I have to take out, and I've got to have my wits about me. But it was never the same in the woods. It was never the same. I would go out, and you're out for a week, 3 days to a week, and I could never relax. I'm always looking over my shoulder. It changed everything and really wrecked a lot. And after a while, I calmed down, relaxed. But then 6 years later, I had a second encounter.
It's a scary account, especially, you don't know the creature's intention. It's the first time you're ever seeing something like this. I could really put myself in your position. And I want to talk about the second encounter that happened to you. Before we get into that, I noticed you kept calling it a she. Would you describe what the creature looked like, and why do you think it was a she?
She had the obvious female attributes of the chest, the mammary glands, about a C cup. I'm 6'2", 250. She's my size. 6 foot, 6'2"-ish. Dark, red, orange hair, flat stomach, muscled legs. As a physical specimen, she was a beautiful being. Okay. Hair all over, but it's not like a shaggy hair. The hair had a grain to it, just like your hair has a grain to it. Your pet's hair has a grain. Her hair had a grain to it as well. She wasn't just some shaggy looking thing. She was quite a beautiful being. It's taken me a long time to appreciate that, because at the time, that was the last thing I'd ever want to exist. I have friends I have a friend that if he thought a werewolf existed, he would want to move to Mars. He doesn't want to be on the same planet as one. This was the type of feeling I had for them. But growing up, my father, he's a great woodsman. And when I asked him, he said, "Oh, it's not real." And I trusted that wholeheartedly, because how disturbing it is to think that this is out there. This is very real.
Yeah, let me ask you, Patrick. So she turns around, she's looking directly into the sun. You're getting a really good look at her. Would you kind of describe the face that you saw? And in your opinion, would you say it was more animal-like, or would you say it was more human-like?
More human. More primitive human. She had a heavy jawbone and a wider jaw, a wider mouth, wider set eyes. My nose, a human nose. Just a patch of skin around the eyes and wispy hair high on the cheek and wispy hair on the nose. But then just below, right at the high cheekbone, all that's thick hair around the mouth, thin lips, a heavy brow line. The brow line was heavy, and I couldn't tell. It's not like she had some huge conical head. She just had a little bit sharper head than mine, but the hair was so thick on her head and I don't know if it was because she was styled by wind or the brush she was running through had something to do with it, but the hair was very much back on the head, but very thick. I don't recall seeing any ears. I mean, that was her face. And her eyes, I didn't see any white of eyes. I saw dark eyes, but I saw a reflection of the sun in them, which later on is very key to them.
Yeah, and I appreciate you going into details about especially about the face, Patrick. I wanted to ask you about that behavior, because as well as I do, if she wanted to run you down, she could have, but she didn't, which I find weird. But what do you make of that behavior, that stalking behavior? Eyewitnesses talk about it. I've heard it time and time again. What do you make of that behavior of her stalking you all the way out?
That question haunted me for a long time, not having that answer. I boiled it down to, all right, she was young. Okay, I really believe she was. This is my take on it. I can't prove it. I really believe she was orphaned, recently, and she wanted some kind of interaction with another being. That's how I really took it. And I know I can't outrun them. I know that. It's just, and their skill set levels are far greater than mine, and I'm better than the average bear out there. But yeah, that haunted me for a long time.
I would imagine at the time you felt like prey, being stalked out especially the way these things tend to stalk people out. But after really hearing your encounter, what happened to you could have been playful behavior. I'm sure it didn't feel like it at the time, though.
It could have been, but for me, it was terrifying. It's always terrifying for the mouse, And the thing was, it destroyed my worldview. Okay, my worldview is there's nothing in the woods, more dangerous than me. I have I have to be respectful. I have to be mindful of my presence in the woods. Careful, how I, what lives I take. I'm the big bad thing in the woods. I'm skilled. I can go out with a knife for a week, and then I find out that I am not that bad of a dude. There's something out there way bigger, way stronger, way faster, and she didn't have to allow me out. She did allow me out, and so that changed everything.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the whole having nightmares portion of what happened, and their behavior is fascinating, and it's also fascinating on the human side. I think it's common for people to have a lot of self-doubt after they've seen one of these creatures. There's that moment of, God, am I having a mental breakdown? Am I losing it? Because like you said, Patrick, you saw something that should not exist. I'm very curious about your second encounter. What kind of a time frame are we talking about? Did you have the second encounter after this first one? And if you would, just kind of walk us into it.
All right. Well, after that encounter, of course, I'm into the subject now, looking. But this is my personal. I can't talk about it. I can't tell anyone. I couldn't talk about it or tell anyone this will happen. So my role as a father, I've got to be strong, work, nothing's bothered me, everything's cool, stoic, stiff upper lip, and my oldest son wanted to start hunting. The following year, he actually got interested in hunting. So he and I started hunting, and I relaxed a bit. I repressed the first thing as something that will never happen again. And he and I are hunting. We start having a great time. and then he decides he wants to deer hunt. So 2004 and 5 and 6 and 7 we squirrel hunted. Well, he wanted to get on a deer lease, and I knew a guy that was on a deer lease that is, you can't buy better deer hunting. Okay, you can pick and choose what you want to shoot. If you want a 12 point, just wait a little longer. He's going to come out. Big deer. So I get him on that deer lease, and I'm not on the lease. I paid for him to be there, and I'm guiding him. And it's down by Peace and Range, a couple hours south of me. And so I worked it out where we'd drive down on an early Saturday morning, and we would hunt and camp till Sunday and drive back. And this is 2009 deer season. Well, we hunt, opening morning is always donated Hunters on Wheels. All our deer stands are on the ground. So we did that, and then the following weekend we hunted ourselves. That's in November. Well, then early December, he and I go down there again. And I told him we didn't need to go because he wasn't feeling well. He had a scratchy throat. He had upset stomach. And I told him, we don't need to go. And, oh, please, Dad, take me. And, soft dad. So I load him in the truck. The truck's already loaded up with all the gear. So I throw him in the truck. We get down there. And we get all the way down 117. And I got to hang a right down this Parish Road. And his stomach, he's got to go take care of business. So I hang a right, I get a quarter mile down the road, and I stop, and he jumps out, and he takes care of some business and gets back in the truck. And about every quarter to half mile, he was plagued with this. And he would jump out into the bar ditch on the right-hand side. Now, you got to understand, this is 4 in the morning. There's no traffic around. It's just an old gravel road. And halfway across this national forest, he's had to get out, take care of business. But it finally settles down, and we make the rest of the way across this national forest because our lease is on the back side of this forest. I mean, we're 3 miles from the nearest burning light bulb. It's back there. And we get to the gate, and I had my window down, and when we get to the gate, about 60 yards away from is a wood line. And then 20 yards inside that wood line, I hear a very familiar sound. And it's something on the ground, something running. And I cannot wrap my head around it. He jumps out of the truck, opens the gate, I pull through, he closes the gate back, he gets in the truck, we take off. We go another half mile down, hang a left, another quarter mile down, there's an intersection right there where there's a stand on the ground that you want to hunt at. I pull up and I stop. And when I stop, I hear the same sound. Just running in the woodline. It's closer though. It's only 40 yards to the woodline now, and it's just 20 yards to the woodline. It's just a ch-ch-ch. No big deal to me, he jumps out of the truck. I get him in his stand. He's locked and loaded. Flashlight. I shut his door in his stand. He locks his stand door. I get in my truck and hang a left, and I got about another quarter mile to go, and it starts down this hill. And I always, when it's wet, I park on top of the hill because it's red clay mud, and I don't want to have a problem. I don't want to get stuck, because we're by ourselves out here, and so I made the quarter mile. It's literally half a mile between both our stands. I still got another quarter mile to walk in the dark with a light. So I park my truck, and there's a brush line next to me. I get out, I click my light on, I start walking. Well, then I hear it. It comes running up to where my truck is, inside the wood line. And I think, no big deal, not alarmed. I start walking, and inside the brush line, 5 yards inside the brush line, there's this crunch, 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 crunch. And it's walking. And I'm like, So I took off faster. I'm walking faster. Now I'm walking faster, and it's crunch, 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 crunch. Just 5 yards in the wood line, 10 yards behind me in the wood line, and there's walking. And I'm like, this is dawning on me. It seems familiar. It's a familiar something, but it's not dawning on me. Oh, then it dawns on me. I have had an experience like this, but that wasn't real. That didn't happen. That's not going to happen again. That only happens to once in a person in a lifetime out in the woods. So I take off walking and it's crunch, crunch, and I'm trying to ignore this, but you can't. So I spin with a light and I look. I can't catch anything moving. I take off walking and I spin again as it's walking. I can't catch it moving. I said, okay, so I start taking off walking again. I said, well, I'm gonna get smart this time. I'm gonna shine higher, but I'm not gonna stop it. I'm gonna shine it and then stop. So I take my light, I shine it over my left shoulder and then stop, turn around, and there's this thud. And there's a limb, spindly. There's a tree there, and the limb spindly comes out into the right of way. Well, that thud hit that tree, and the moisture that was been misting on this tree limb shakes down and rains the moisture down by my boot in the right of way. And I'm looking, and beside that tree, there's a huge black face, and the two eyes are reflecting my light in its eyes. And this thing is huge. And this thing is massive, and it just hit his head on that tree. When I turned, I guess I blinded him. But, and I'd gone back and tracked to see what happened. And what it was an inch and a half big round stick. He stepped on it, and it gave away. And when it gave away, he went head first into the tree. And when he hit that tree, it shook the dew off of the leaves that was out in that right of way next to my boot. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm looking at his eyes, and he's massive. And I said, okay, there's a problem. And I remember during the last, encounter, I had repressed it so much that it all come flooding back. It's like I was right back there with that first encounter again, and all the nerves and all the anxiety, and I think every hair on me is standing up. And I said, okay. I remembered that I wanted to do something, and what was it? Oh, I wanted to pinch myself. So I reach and I grab my left forearm, and I just twist with my thumb in my hand, and the pain. I was still there. The situation didn't change. This is real. This is really happening. It's still in there staring at me, and and there's no going back. Okay, I got a little boy in a deer stand, a little over a quarter mile away. I'm not going back that direction. I'm not dragging him back that direction. So, okay, we're going to have it out here. I made it up in my mind. We're going to have it out here. Whatever happens is going to be here. And I'm going to do what I got to do, even if I got to shoot this thing. So I take off walking. And then in the back of my mind, you get to thinking, well, is this the only one out here? Is he driving you towards something? Is there another one on the other side of you? So now I'm on 360 pivot. I'm scooting. I'm on 360 pivot. I'm trying to keep the light on him as much as I can. I'm listening to him crunch, and his weight is you cannot hide but his weight on the ground as he walks. It's crunch, 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 and he's 5 yards in the wood line, right there. And I'm 360 pivot. The only time I took the light off him was to shine it around me to make sure there wasn't another one coming up on my other side. And I knew that block of woods he was in was going to end. Another couple hundred yards down, it comes to an end, and that's where we're going to have it out at. So, and now I'm scooting, I'm moving. Okay, I'm not messing around. I'm getting down this right away. He's in the brush line following. I pass that corner up, and I set up a kill box. I have my weapon on my shoulder, my light under the forearm of my stock. I passed it up and gave myself a little bit of room to fight. I've got it. I'm safety off, ready to rock and roll. Step out and let's end this. I'm that serious. It stops just shy of the wood line of coming out. I hear it scuff its feet. Okay, I hear his feet on the ground scuff. Evidently, that's a thing for them. It scuffs his feet and it takes off. And it goes down the wood line, inside the wood line, And it goes down about 25, 30 yards and drops down a hill into a bottom. And he crests that hill and he's gone. Oh my God. Woo, thank you, Lord, you know. And there's a wood line, edge of woods here, and there's this little pig trail that goes down to my stand. I hit my pig trail, it's 80 yards from my stand. Bam, I'm running. I run, oh my God, let me get to my deer stand. Oh God, let me get to my deer stand. I'm gonna get my deer stand shut door, and I get around my deer stand, and the door had been off the hinges, and I meant to fix it, but I haven't yet. And I get there, and I see the door hanging up. I'm like, oh crap, I didn't fix the door yet. So, and it's a 4x6, you know, box stand on the ground. And so I get in, I grab the door, and I lean it up. The top of the door is touching my, you know, the top of the deer stand, you know, and this has a gap at the bottom. I unfold my chair, I sit down, and I sit facing the door. You know, weapon still off safety, click my light off. It's so dark you can't see your hand in front of your face. And I said, okay, I'm safe. I'm here. I'm in my stand. I'm safe. I'm here. I'm okay. And I breathe in and breathe out. And he beat me there. He had beat me there. He was 35 yards in the dark off my door. And he comes creeping in, just real slow. 1 foot. You can hear the heel to toe. 7.5 seconds for it to make contact, and then the weight crunch. And then closer, and I am sitting in the dark and I'm mapping it out in my head, every sound I'm hearing, and I hear closer another footstep, and you hear it lightly hit the ground and start compressing the straw and the leaves, and then crunch. You can't hide his weight. It's that big. And he does that all the way up to my door. And the brush line that was tickling the top of my tin roof on my deer stand, it parts. Woof, it parts. I mean, you just hear it scrape off. And I'm like, oh my God, it's right behind the door. Okay. And it got quiet for a moment. And then I hear something on the ground, and I can only describe it as it was on the ground on all fours. Because it stuck its nose in the gap of my door, at the bottom of the door where there's a gap because it's just leaned up. And he sticks his nose in there and he goes, and I said, oh my God, what's this thing want? And I'm sitting there and I have my weapon pointed at him, safety off. Do I fire? Do I not fire? Do I fire? Do I not fire? Do I shoot? You know, and I think I'm not shooting unless I have to. Because if I shoot, you know anything about killing an animal, it's got a minute or two to do whatever it wants to you. I do not want this thing to have a minute or two to do whatever it wants to me. And then it dawned on me, it's sniffing, and when animals sniff, it's trying to identify you. Okay, it did it twice. And so I had, and then I realized when I got dressed that morning, as a common practice, and I didn't even think about this, when I bathed with Scent-Away, I sprayed the inside of all my clothes, all the inside and outside with Scent-Away, every layer, and Scent-Awayed myself. It couldn't smell me, and that's just a common thing for me to do hunting, but it couldn't smell me. So what can I do to make it smell me? Well, I'm chewing tobacco. So I spit at the door, and it hits the door and runs down the door, and it kind of goes, and it backs up. And then the brush just shuffled, but still there, kind of comes back halfway about where it was, tickling the top of my tin roof, and it's backing away from my stand. And then it walks out smoothly. You hear it walk out diagonally to my right, back out to the woods. And I sat there shaking. And at that point in time, I was willing to admit that there is a phenomenon that will make you believe there's a Bigfoot in the woods. Okay, that's how adamant of a non-believer that I was. Okay, there is a phenomenon that'll make you believe there's a Bigfoot in the woods. And I'm sitting here, and it starts getting gray. Within 5 minutes, it starts getting gray. You kind of start seeing a little bit. And it's not very long. I get out of my stand. I collect my son, and we go to camp. And I'm rattled. and his stomach's still upset. He's still not doing well. And I camp in a 10 by 10 trail tarp made by Panther Primitive. It's a diamond fly, is what they call it. And so I get to camp, I set up my diamond fly, get a fire going. It's still mist and rain. I get him comfortable, get him some medicine, cook lunch, and I did not want to go back that afternoon. Okay. And I didn't bring it up hunting that afternoon, and he didn't either. He was just a 12-year-old boy loving being in the woods, camping with Dad. You know, and I wasn't going to say anything. But about dark, he looks at me dead in the eye, and he looks at me and he says, "Sasquatch is going to get you tonight." And I said, "Why in the world would you say that to me?" He said, "Because it's funny. We just tell scary stories around the fire, Dad. We're out here camping." I said, "You want a scary story?" I said, "Once upon a time this morning." And I went through the entire encounter, what happened, what I experienced, everything. And when I was done, I looked up at him, and his eyes were big, his mouth's open. He said, "There's no way that could have happened." I said, "That's exactly what I thought."
Yeah, it's an amazing account, Patrick. You know, and here it is again. The creature displays this type of behavior of stalking you. This one sounds a little more aggressive than maybe the first one did, but it's still stalking you. What do you make of that behavior in this encounter?
Looking back on it, I believe that moving fast, we were doing 35, 40 miles an hour across there, and we'd only stop when he had to get out and relieve himself because he had upset stomach. I think it took that as a territorial challenge. I think we picked it up going across that public land. I think because it was at the gate running when I stopped and he got to open the gate. It was at his stand, and it slowed down, stopped running when I put him in his stand. When I drove down and parked the truck, it come running up to my door of my truck. It was in the brush line and stalked me down that brush line. And I believe it had something to do with the droppings that were left across that national forest as a territorial display.
And there's so much that I want to go into with you, Patrick, because I know you've been looking into this for probably the last 10, 12 years, something like that. And I'd really like your opinion on a couple things. Would you be willing to come back for a part 2?
Oh, I'd love to.
I appreciate it. I'm curious, what do you think that Sasquatch is? What's kind of your personal opinion as far, and there's no wrong answer, of course, but I'm curious, what is your opinion on what Sasquatch is?
I believe they are a hominid tree, one of the branches that has not been identified or discovered. There hasn't, we have not excavated this entire world and to look for every fossil of everything that's ever lived here. We've only excavated a very small amount of it. And yet we're surprised that we don't find this in the fossil record. But also, fossils take a very special set of criteria to form in the first place. So there could have been beings that lived on this planet and never fossilized. So I believe they're just an undiscovered hominid.
Yeah, you could be right, Patrick. You could definitely be right. What are your thoughts on the fact that it's seen all over the world? Every nation has a name for this thing. No one seems to be able to catch up with this creature. Whether it's a hominid, an ape, whatever people want to call it. Do you find it strange whether you're in Australia, you're in North America, you're in China, Russia, wherever it is, that no one's been able to catch up with this thing?
As a species, we're not that fast. We don't have that great eyesight or sense of smell. Anything that has intellect and speed and chooses not to be seen doesn't have to be.
Yeah, could be. We're not that fast, but bullets are very fast. For me, it's just weird, and I'm not breaking your balls about anything. I'm just saying, for me, it's weird that we just haven't been able to catch up with them. I just have a hard time with that. And that's just my own personal hang-up,
I do. And I spent 16 years studying one group. And what I learned is that they keep a buffer between you and them. They manage you when you're in the woods. They share the woods with you. You know, you can go in the woods and do your thing, and as long as it's not anything that's threatening to their survival, you'll never know they're there. They'll just step back out of the way and let you do what you want to do, and then they know you're going to leave. You're not going to stay there, and they can go back to doing what they're doing. And that is the barrier that I spent a lot of years trying to break. And as much trust as I built with this one small group, they still don't trust me. They still don't like me. I'm still guilty of being a human. You know, they would allow me within 60 yards, broad daylight. I could see them, but then it was fleeting glimpses. And they're so fast. You know, they don't have to let you see them. And that's just what I experienced, you know. I really, it's hard to explain it any other way. You know, I lend myself, my skill sets, and everything I have to the proof of, getting them recognized as a real being by science. My personal mission, and this is my goal, is awareness. I want awareness out there. It doesn't matter whether you perceive them or not. It doesn't matter if you believe in them or not. They know about you if you've been in the woods. So if you start seeing something out there that looks sketchy, back up, because you could, you got to think your way through the problem so you don't hurt yourself or anyone else getting out of there. That's my narrative. That's my angle. I want people to be able to deal with the situation if it arises well.
Yeah, I like the awareness part. I respect that very much so. And I can't wait to have you back to hear about the 16 years of investigation that you've done. And I really enjoyed talking with you, Patrick. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Oh, thank you very much. And I appreciate you. I think you have a great platform. Much respect for your platform. I've only heard good things about you. And I hope anyone that listens to this has a benefit from it.
Thanks for the kind words, Patrick. And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. If you get a chance to check out sasquatchchronicles.com, you can become a member and get additional shows. Until next time, everyone.
My wheels unturned to go alone. Baby, you should know that I'm gone. With the lights on, this is my home. Place where I own memories of you, dear. Until your eyes close at the skies, I'm mesmerized. Memories of you, dear. I saw a moon as a human and brighter. And its power grew wider. So I put my speed a little wiser. To eat something quieter. With the lights on, this is my home.